Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Mental Health Warriors TV. This afternoon, we have a special guest called Karen Mcewan, who is a specialist in the field of lupus by experience herself, because she herself has had lupus for several years, and also because she works as a psychotherapist, particularly with those who are enduring lupus. So, Karen, tell us today how, if you would reiterate, I know you've said this before, but if you would just tell us your start with lupus.
Yes, well, in 2012, I was suddenly admitted to hospital with a life-threatening fever. And overnight, they managed to get the fever down. But I woke up in the next day in such extreme pain that I couldn't even move my arm across the bed to press the button to call the nurse. And I remember thinking that that was extremely odd because really ill people could press that button and I couldn't do it. And I was in terrible pain, very weak, and I had a funny rash appear all over my cheeks and across my nose. And within a week, they conducted huge amounts of tests, but they came and said they thought it was lupus, and that was confirmed. So basically, I survived a top 2 percentile flare. I ended up in a wheelchair and weighing just 6 stone or some 84 pounds. But I managed to, recover from there, and I still live with the condition on a daily basis. And
You were
no,
in pain for many years after
I was
that.
into, yes, chronic pain. I've gone through the full gamut of painkillers, everything from fentanyl patches, right the way through opiates, just because of the continuous chronic pain. Yes, we had emergency outs for pain. And I know I'm not alone in that because some people have been admitted to hospital thinking they've got meningitis with lupus, with the rashes and the amount of pain. So pain is one of the big ones. 90% of people who have lupus experience pain. So yeah, and I'm on a bit of a mission now, having educated myself for 9 years about lupus, to make sure that nobody feels as lost, bewildered, and devastated as I did when shortly after diagnosis.
And there's a couple of aspects of this that interest me, and that is one, people tend to assume, lay people that don't have any kind of chronic illness with pain, that if you have pain, the medical profession is able to abate that pain, to lessen the pain. But that's a bit of a myth, isn't it?
Oh yes, it's definitely a case of management. Your own body is your enemy in a funny kind of way. And the pain almost develops a personality of its own. I remember saying it was like the worst boss I ever had. It had to be cajoled. It had to be,
It was a bully.
premeditated. It had to be looked after. And if you didn't deal with it and look after it, it was like having a sort of pantechnicon driving straight at you. You knew it was coming, so you had to try and sort it out. So yeah, I think also pain management is highly individual, and it's very much a process of trial and error.
Right.
So no, the thing that you go to the doctor gives you a tablet and everything is sorted. I'm afraid it doesn't work like that.
No, no. And you've written a book, which we'll talk about in a minute, but the title of it is How to Stay Sane with Pain.
Yeah,
Yes?
in pain, yes.
Pain, yes. Now, I myself have chronic fatigue syndrome, and luckily it's not like fibromyalgia. There isn't pain with it, but it comes with its own set of debilitating symptoms.
Yeah.
And the biggest challenge for me has been not so much the condition, but the debilitating symptoms of the condition that stop me from being able to live the life I loved.
Yeah.
How do you work with people with the mental health side of dealing with a debilitating chronic illness like lupus?
Yes, no, you're absolutely correct. I mean, people come to me and somebody's pulled the rug out from underneath their life.
Yeah.
Everything that they used to be able to do, they can't do. And you get all kinds of toxic emotions around that, guilt. I remember beating myself up and thinking, where did I go wrong? What did I do? Because I've obviously broken myself. And how did I manage that? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You need to try and sort of say that those emotions, you need to validate them, but also then say that they're not helpful. Do you know what I mean? You want to get the mind in a positive place in order for them to continue to live their best life with it and indeed recover. So that's the entry level, you know?
Do you promote a grieving process? Because I have found very much that it's a bereavement. You know, this body of yours was healthy, but now this companion, this ally, is no longer able to do the things with you that you want to. You can no longer plan to the future with it about what you were going to do. It won't help you earn a living. And so you've lost a part of you that is absolutely vital and that you loved dearly, and it's gone.
Yes, I'm so pleased you said that, because before, when I was walking around before this podcast, one of the things I was thinking was I often treat people in a grieving process for the life that they had. And you have to take them through that, and so that they can rebuild and they can, you know, find new ways of coping and beneficial, etc. But you can imagine that's quite a complex process.
Huge.
Absolutely huge. And people don't get any help on it. I mean, when I had my first consultation in London with my thing, I was in a wheelchair. I had my consultation, and at the end of it, they gave me a little fold out leaflet, you know, one of those little fold out leaflets. And I remember one of the things it said was, if you're tired, rest. And and I remember thinking, my whole life has just, you know, I'm in a wheelchair, I've absolutely got nothing, and somebody handed me effectively 4 little bits of paper, and that's supposed to sort out, you know, the implications of this for me, mentally, emotionally, and physically,
and financially. People just, you know, they for one thing, I'm not sure if it's so much the same with lupus because the symptoms seem to be very out there, but still there must be days when even with lupus you think to yourself, oh God, am I just being lazy? Am I sort of making this up and indulging myself? Do I not want to work? And it's such seeds of self-doubt. And then you do too much to compensate, and then you're ill.
Yes. No, we try and working on the guilt and the beating yourself up and the could-haves and the should-haves are really, really important.
Yes. I once read a book by a psychotherapist, and he was talking about how we must not give in to the musts because that becomes masturbation. I thought, did I just read that?
Yeah, no, I get the should-haves. The should-haves is really, really important. You know, I ban it. I basically, I say, you mustn't say that anymore. I should have done this, that, and the other is really, really important to get rid of it, basically. And then get yourself into, and I also, one of the things I do is I explain how things like chronic pain and chronic fatigue can actually affect the brain. So your brain in chronic pain never switches off. It's in permanent fight or flight mode, and it actually drains the brain. So it gives you things like brain fog and anxiety and depression. So one of the things I do is I try and say to them, it's not you, you're still you, it's the lupus. So making a distinction between the illness and them, and I can't tell you how much that resonates with people, to make them still feel that they're still them, but they've got this illness.
Yes, that as you say.
Does that resonate with you, Karen?
Absolutely, because that then allows the real you, if you like, to become an ally to the unhealthy you, and to see your role in a way as the strong and resilient you, able to ally with and support the unhealthy you.
We've lost her.
We have, haven't we?
We've lost her. Yeah, we've lost her. Hang on a minute. Bring her back.
We lost you.
Why we lost the link?
Yeah, we're back. You're back again.
Yeah.
Yes, I was saying it resonates with me because what it enabled me to do was to realize that the essence of me was still this strong and resilient person that could be an ally, if you like, to my unhealthy body and support the unhealthy body, and not to see myself as just the lump on the sofa. I don't think she's hearing us, Adam.
No, I think we've lost her.
She's frozen. Shall I just say a few things?
If you want.
Okay.
It's your show. I'm here for the ornament, for display.
Dear. Okay. Yeah. So talking generally about chronic ill health. Oh, is she back? No. There is this sense that it's a hopelessness at first, that you have lost the person you were and the person you hope to be, and that you're never going to regain them. And it's been a long journey for me, first of all, of misdiagnosis, but then of grieving, or even realizing I grieve, and then realizing hopelessness could give way to helpfulness, and that there would be a way of living my life that, yes, it wasn't at the accelerated way I wanted it to be, but it had hope in it. And so, Karen, do you find instilling hope in your clients is vital?
Yes. One of the things I wrote in my book was that I actually came away from one rheumatologist and I got a new rheumatologist, and she took one look at me and said, you need immediate, you have to go in for an infusion tomorrow. This is so urgent. You're in such a state that you have to have an infusion of steroids like in the next 2 days, and that's it, come hell or high water. And I remember writing in the book, the most important thing was she gave me hope. And if you lose your hope, that's, that you're quite right, that is essential. It's essential to the human spirit, I think, and for a desire to go on.
Yes, I've written a book too that its subtitle is How to Maintain Hope While Living with a Mental Illness. And I think there's nothing more. And part of that is people like yourself who are not on the other side, you're still in it, but you've come through the part of the journey that made you feel hopeless. And I find too that clients of mine, when I say, oh, I know exactly how you feel, I've been there, something sparks in their eyes, which is, well, if you have found purpose and reason, then maybe I can too.
Yeah, my clients say again and again the fact that I have been through it, and still living with it, then they find that incredibly useful, because I'm not talking at a distance, I'm not talking down to them in any way, and they find that somebody actually wrote a testimonial from me saying he didn't realize quite how important it was to have someone who knew what he was going through.
Yes. So here's a challenging question for you. I've had it asked of me, and it's a very challenging question. How, when someone is in what feels like a hopeless situation that isn't going to immediately disappear, may even get worse over the years, how do you go about instilling hope?
Well, the most important thing is to do it with little steps. It's little steps and rebuilding a whole sense of purpose and life. And it can mean simple as enjoying, finding all the little things to enjoy, finding out what, things make them laugh, what things they used to enjoy, and seeing if we can add that into the process. I do a lot of mindfulness, which is really, really important, and proper mindfulness, not just, I'll think about things, but really, really the proper Thich Nhat Hanh for mindfulness, and go into that in depth, because that helps hugely.
Right.
And then really quite a constructive cognitive behavioral process, simplified because people are sick, to rebuilding their lives bit by bit. but I always say, mountains are built with one rock. Start with one rock. So it's amazing what you can do with tiny little steps. I think I'm an example of that. Literally started by clearing drawers, tidying up a drawer and a cupboard at a time, just to get a sense of purpose,
Absolutely. Go. Sorry, Adam.
No, I was just saying that obviously while you two was telling all this, I was looking up some facts about this, and the age you can actually start getting lupus is actually 15.
Yeah, 90% of people who have lupus are women of childbearing age between the ages of 15 and 45.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And imagine that with it starting that young, especially in the teen years, it will be fobbed off many times as other things.
Oh, I got told I started to swell because of the inflammation. So when I was in my late teens, I suddenly started getting swelling. And I went to one doctor and he dismissed it as puppy fat. He said, "Oh, it's just puppy fat."
Gosh.
I was literally swelling up in the night, and in the morning I wouldn't have any eyes, and it would drop out during the course of the day. But that was puppy fat. It wasn't. It was water retention and inflammation.
I mean, and that that's GP 101. You'd think.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Going back to the hope thing, I use a metaphor of if somebody wants to buy a rabbit, right? They want to have a rabbit.
Yes.
Now, they may not be able to get that rabbit straight away. You're wondering where I'm going, Adam, aren't you?
Just a little bit.
They may not be able to get that rabbit straight away, can't afford it or whatever. There's never a dearth of rabbits, but so they haven't the joy of holding a rabbit straight away. But if they go through the motion step by step of building a rabbit hutch, of buying the rabbit food, of making a space in the garden, all these little things without yet the emotion of having a rabbit, what that does is it's building the space and the anticipation and the it will come.
Yes.
And when I've talked to clients, I've said that's what hope is like. You go through the little things that you've been talking about. Oh, my cat's made an entrance. Hello. Without feeling the emotion yet, you're not going to feel hope maybe for a long time. But by going through the little steps that you've talked about, you are building a place for it to live when it arrives.
Yeah. No, I mean, it can be a long drawn out process, particularly as if you say there's some trauma involved in it as well.
Yes.
So I run several programs and things for people. One of the most important things to do with lupus is to just tell them about it, because it's very complex and mysterious, and a lot of people don't know the facts. So clarity is really important. So you tell them all about it.
Yes.
And one of the other things I do is make sure that they know what they're eating and things like that, and what other help they can get. And it's all very constructive. It's all little things. But as you say, they all build towards a much more positive, forward-thinking existence, which is what they've been denied.
Yes. And do you think support groups and forums are a good idea with lupus, or is it something to be careful about in case you see catastrophize your condition right now?
Oh, I think the forums are, but there's a couple of big sort of autoimmune and lupus forums. The thing that annoys me slightly about them is that they don't have anybody giving the information and the answers. So they all tend to just ask each other the same questions. So
Right.
the same questions with lupus come up about symptoms, and the same questions about diet come up. So I run 2 programs to try and answer all those questions and teach people how to do them, to get those out of the way. And I run my own Facebook group, the Lupus Bounce Back Club, because that's actually got concrete information in it, rather than everybody just chasing their tails asking the same question. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I've got a fact which will lead on to a question. Now, obviously, this fact, it says lupus and its treatment can impair mental and emotional health. 80 to 90% of people with lupus. Neuropsychiatric lupus describes feelings of depression, headaches, and lupus fog, trouble thinking or remembering due to lupus. 25% of lupus patients experience major depression, and 37% have major anxiety. So what's the difference between lupus and neuropsychiatric lupus?
Well, I don't like that now. Now, this is very interesting because there is some recent, I've just written the article about it, which is that the number of people who are not being diagnosed quickly. So the average length to diagnose is just under 7 years. Can you believe that, Karen? 7 years. Yeah, some people, 25% of one sample took 10 years to be diagnosed. Some were lucky enough, some were lucky enough to be diagnosed within 1 year, but normally it's a long and tortuous process. And they've been doing some research and they found out that 76% of people who have lupus are diagnosed with something else before they finally get diagnosed. But what's more worrying is a study in the States found that over 50%, 54% were diagnosed that it was a mental health problem before before they were diagnosed with lupus. So they were being told it was all in their head, basically.
Yeah.
So I think that neuropsychiatric lupus is, I think that's part of that syndrome, basically. That is a group of people who are trying to say that anxiety, health anxiety, or that sort of thing is causing it. But you've got to remember that that was a study of 3,000 people in the States. Over 54% of them were told it was in their head before they went on to be diagnosed with lupus, proper lupus, which explains the symptoms. So I have real issues with neuropsychiatric lupus. Lupus is lupus.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. And even Karen looks a little bit pissed off at that.
Well, because for me, the process of getting diagnosed with chronic fatigue, I was told it was everything but physical. Now, I understand with chronic fatigue, I've had a lot of trauma in my life, and I know that the rushing round of cortisol and adrenaline is good for the immune system. But it still wasn't in my head. It wasn't me saying, I think I'll choose to lie in bed today and not be able to do anything. It's really condescending to tell us that.
I've come across really, really high-powered women, lawyers, ex-military, naval, officers, nurses who have been told it's all in their head. And who've previously had nothing. Now, when you get into chronic pain and chronic fatigue, it definitely affects the way your brain works. So it tends to make you, if you're in constant pain, you can get anxious because it actually mucks around with your neuro pathways. And the same way with chronic fatigue. But I hate this route because to me, it gives psychotherapists a bad name because we can do so much to help, but most people who've got lupus are scared of psychotherapy because they think that somebody's going to tell them that it's all in their head and they're not, they're imagining it.
Exactly. How do you work with people who are married, mothers, fathers, and the relationship side of it? I would imagine that's a challenge as well.
Yeah, it's a really big challenge. The first one is very often a lot of mothers feel very guilty about what they're not doing for the family because women are actually sort of caring stalwart for the middle of the family. So they can feel hugely frustrated and guilty. So that's an issue on itself. But the other one is this disbelieving thing. The fact that lupus isn't well known and not understood, that can extend beyond the doctor. And let's face it, if the doctor doesn't believe them, why should other members of the family believe them? And in a situation where their immediate support structure doesn't really believe them either, and think they're being work-shy prima donnas and that they should snap out of it and get back to doing things, and will make really unhelpful suggestions. Like, I know someone who's a good, I mean, I've had people say that, you know, a friend suggested they go and see an aromatherapist and that would sort it all out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So actually making sure that the family is all on the same page,
Yeah.
and that their support structure is right, is absolutely crucial. You've absolutely nailed it. Yeah.
I had a partner of mine say, we're no longer together, say to me, I think you enjoy being ill. And I said, what do you mean? And because this particular day I just could not go into work. So, well, you know, what's better than lying on the sofa and having the government pay your bills for a while? And I had lost the stigma of it by this time.
Yes.
So I looked at her and I said, you know what? I'm not even going to bother telling you what it's like. You've known me long enough. And if you were in my head and in my body for an hour, you wouldn't make it because you're not strong enough. And then I bounced out and slammed the door. But I couldn't believe that somebody who had known me 14 years and seen me at my worst could say such an incredibly ignorant but cruel thing. Yeah. And it must end some relationships, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you definitely, you've got situations where they don't. And also, I think some people feel that one of the bad ones is they don't feel that they will be loved because they've got lupus. Well, that's the other one.
Yeah.
And rebuilding confidence and self-esteem, absolutely crucial. Absolutely crucial.
Yeah, we've got a couple of comments, obviously, before you say, Karen.
Okay.
Sandy Jew, she's from Australia. So, and I'd like to know what lupus is like over there in Australia, Sandy. But she put, oh, I hate that comment. I don't know what she's referring to. I don't know. Okay. And then she put, it's just nice to lie down in sofa and get paid.
Yeah.
So she hated that comment. Yeah, so exactly. And can I just say, I actually think that people who, you know, are going through that much pain, and when I'm amazed how strong these women are, and men. I mean, I've had male clients as well, and they need huge strength of character and persistence, and I'm always in absolute awe of how much they've achieved and how much they are achieving.
Yes, the resilience is not only vital, but it doesn't come easy. Chronic illness is not for sissies.
Yeah. Not for wimps. Definitely not. No.
Was there another comment, Adam?
Yeah, there's a third one, but obviously that's from earlier. My beautiful wife, Kerry, she tuned in saying, good afternoon, warriors.
Good afternoon, Kerry.
Kerry's literally right here.
What, by the piano?
Yes.
Yes. I think she's going to play for us. Hey, Kerry. No. Sandy put, I have people made that comment of me as well, believe it or not. Not too popular of lupus.
Well, Sandy, all I can say is I'm so sorry you've been put through that, because it is just an awful thing to hear someone say.
Yeah. No. And you know what? Some people have had such a tough time that, you know, they come to me sometimes and all they want to do for the first 2 hours would just be to pour their heart out to somebody who's a compassionate, non-judgmental listener who can just listen to what they've been through, because sometimes they don't feel that they can share with close friends and family what they're actually feeling and what they're actually going through. And that in itself is hugely cathartic and reinforcing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And to be believed, to know they're being believed, you know. Sorry, go on.
Kerry's just put, I would come on camera, but I'm about to go pick our mini warriors up from school.
Oh, mini warriors. Oh, how cute.
Because the isolation of a chronic illness is, I mean, I thank God for social media and that I live in an age of social media. I know there's a lot said about being on it too much, but there's been days when I haven't been able to meet with friends for a week or so or leave the house. And to have friends on social media has meant everything.
Yeah. The isolation is really, really tough. And trying to rebuild what people can do, and try and sort of communicate with friends and family. The best friends are the ones that phone up, you're having a bad day, they phone back the next day. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Is lupus recognised in Britain as something you can actually get disability living allowance for, PIP?
Yes, I believe it is. I believe that they've actually been quite good about it. I mean, I believe that you have to prove quite a lot, you have to have a proper diagnosis, and all your medications, etc. And in this country, I think you have to go through quite a few, you have to fill in lengthy forms and have an interview and all that sort of thing.
Oh, they make you jump through so many hoops.
Yeah, it's a really complicated process, but I definitely know people in this country who have got PIP, personal independence payment, and support. Yeah. Because the mobility issue can be quite important, because on bad days you're in too much pain, you can't walk, basically.
Yes.
I think we've got a question off Sandy, but I think we've already covered it. What makes it difficult to diagnose lupus that it took 7 years?
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Basically, lupus, unfortunately, hasn't got one symptom or two symptoms, and it hasn't got a blood test which just confirms it like that. There are actually more than 10 official lupus symptoms, of which you have to have 4. And part of the jigsaw is some complex blood tests. Now, it's the blood tests that seem to be causing confusion at the people who don't understand them. And some people are using these blood tests as gatekeepers. So they're basically saying, if you don't hit this blood test, with one called Positive Anna, and if you don't hit that, then they won't pass you on. So some people get stuck going round and round and round at the lower levels without getting referred to a specialist.
Yeah.
So, and as I said, they very often will get told that they've got something else, or they need to go away, or they need to have antidepressants. People have been put on antidepressants. People, there is a genuine thing which thinks it's all in the head. So
do you find GPs can be quite difficult gatekeepers, in that they don't see the need to refer you because they're just assuming it's this or that?
Well, the latest reports out of Cambridge University, headed up by a young lady called Melanie Sloan, who herself has brain lupus.
Oh, God.
She found that they were not appreciating that you didn't actually have to have positive ANA to still be diagnosed with lupus. So you should be looking at the symptoms in the round. You should be looking at the pain. You should be looking at the fatigue. You should be looking at the ulcers, and you should be putting a picture together. And unfortunately, it's not widely known, and it doesn't seem to be. So that's what's happening.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because the word symptom, because I've actually got the symptoms here. There's mild, moderate, and severe. Now, if people find that they've got joint and skin problems and tiredness, that's just mild. It's moderate is inflammation of other parts of the skin and body, including your lungs, heart, and kidneys.
Yeah.
That's moderate. Severe is inflammation causing severe damage to the heart, lungs, brain, or kidneys that can be life-threatening.
Yeah, the problem with this non-diagnosis is that moderate to severe systemic lupus works away under the surface. Again, it's this hidden business, and it can destroy and damage organs. So, for example, I narrowly avoided a liver transplant, but I've lost my spleen. The lupus completely destroyed my spleen, so I don't have a spleen. So it can do that to the heart or the kidneys, or indeed, to neurological things as well. So yeah, this is the problem with the non-diagnosis, because without the right medication, steroids, immunosuppressants, anti-malarials, you basically can have underlying damage going on. And another thing is, if you get pregnant, the pregnancy needs to be monitored extremely carefully, because there's a higher incidence of miscarriages and problems during pregnancy with people with lupus. So it's extraordinarily important that it is diagnosed as early as possible.
Yeah.
So are there specialists in each hospital that is a lupus specialist?
Not in each hospital. There
Right.
are centres of excellence in this country, and there's the London Lupus Centre in London, and there's also at UCH, there's another, Professor De Cruz, I believe, works out of UCH, and he's another thing. Very often people end up going round and round and round within the system, and eventually break out and go and see one of the top people to get the specific diagnosis.
So if somebody has been round and round for a bit, what do you suggest they do, rather than, as you say, continuing to have underlying damage being done and yet they're not being attended to?
Yeah. I mean, I just think if you're experiencing chronic pain in your limbs, so that's joints or muscles, you've got chronic fatigue, and then you've got things like ulcers or funny rashes, it really should be one of the things that you ask about. It really should, autoimmune should come up, you know what I mean? It shouldn't be dismissed as much as it is.
And it shouldn't be dismissed as fibromyalgia. I would guess sometimes.
Well, fibromyalgia and Sjogren's are all comorbid with lupus. So very often 30% of people who have lupus also have Sjogren's as well. And then you've got rheumatoid arthritis, which is slightly off to one side. That's the thing. But yeah, well,
Sandy's got a question, and so do I, but we'll go for Sandy's first. Do you find there is contradictory medication with other symptoms of lupus, i.e., if the symptoms is headache, ulcer, one med is for headache will be contradictory for meds for ulcer?
Yeah. It's funny enough, I had a client this week who's starting a new medication for lupus, and I remember saying to her, look, the bottom line is all medications for lupus are pretty much trial and error. So don't think because if you start to react badly to this or you have complications, it may just not be right for you. You may not be able to take it. Some people can take a drug for a year and then their white blood cell count can come off and they have to come off it. So it's a process of constantly trying to find the right meds that work together.
Yeah, and obviously mine is obviously not everyone wants medication. People are anti-med, whatever you want to call it. Would you recommend them to turn to, for example, essential oils for lupus?
I promote a holistic approach. So using the best of modern medicine and then using the best of psychiatric and care, and then also making sure that you use the best of alternative medicine. So acupuncture, if that works for you, reflexology, Reiki, Indian head massage, aromatherapy, they're all really valuable and very useful and can make your journey that much better. So I'm a big, in my book, I actually have several chapters on all of the alternative, and I work with alternative practitioners because I think it just, I had Reiki and reflexology at my lowest level on the NHS.
Wow.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. They had a group. I was in such a state that they were calling out the local district nurses were having to come out to rescue me, and they put me in a program which was for people who had got cancer and things like that, to just give me some help basically. So yeah, I had Reiki and reflexology on the NHS.
This was pain relief, was it?
Just to help the muscles, help the general sense of well-being, promoting relaxation, because if you're in constant pain, anything that can help the body relax, be more resilient, your sense of well-being releases oxytocin, serotonin. They're all very good for you.
Wow, that's good advice. Yes.
Yeah, it is.
We shouldn't be surprised, Adam, should we? She's a good guest.
She's brilliant.
No, seriously, leave no stone unturned. It's such a complex illness. You just use anything you can. If it works, great.
Now, you mentioned before about these different sites you have. How can people find those?
Different sites. What my
Well,
I've got my group. I can give Adam the link to
Please, yeah.
my Facebook group.
Yes, it was forums in which you answer questions.
Yeah. There's the lupus. There is the general lupus forum on the system. If you type in lupus, it comes up with sort of lupus warriors, and everybody talks. There's about 28,000 people on it.
Right.
And there's also Health Unlocked in the UK, the lupus section of that. They
Right.
have a high thing, and they do quite a lot. They're quite good at presenting any latest research or anything that comes up.
Right.
So that's there. But I try and cover. I keep up to date, and I make sure that if anything comes out in terms of research, that I put it in my group so that everybody's got it.
Excellent. Yes, excellent.
Yes, absolutely.
So to somebody who has fairly recently received this, what is quite a damning diagnosis, what would your words be to support them in this initial shock and this initial dealing with it?
Yeah, I think the first thing is clarity, is to learn as much as you could. I mean, I remember thinking, oh, I'll just go to a website and I'll be able to find out everything about lupus. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. It's spread everywhere, and there's lots of bits of information. So that was one of the reasons I wrote the book, was so that all the basic stuff was there. And it's one of the reasons I come on podcasts and things like that, is I'm constantly trying to get the basics across.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So that at least they know what they've got, and knowledge, especially if they spent ages not knowing what on earth was wrong with them, that can be really cathartic. People can find it a huge relief to be diagnosed.
Yes. I mean, I know when I was diagnosed with complex PTSD, which I was misdiagnosed with for 28 years, I had misdiagnoses. I mean, somebody else might say, well, why are you happy to have a diagnosis like that? I say, well, once you get a diagnosis, you know how to effectively treat it.
Yes.
So it is, some people don't like labels, and I don't like some labels, but I think to be able to clarify what you've got because it's given a name is a huge benefit.
Yeah.
Would you advise people to find a lupus or chronic illness informed therapist?
Well, I mean, that's what I try and put across, is a 360. I try and be the sort of cashmere cardigan of lupus gurus, wrap them up and generally just try and take care of them on many levels, really.
Is there some directory for not just yourself, but for others out there?
I don't know anybody else who's doing it comprehensively at the moment. I mean, there will be therapists who treat depression, who treat anxiety, who treat trauma, but they may not necessarily understand the lupus context. Right.
And if somebody was interested in contacting you regarding possible therapy and some open space you might have in the future for a new client, how would they get a hold of you?
Oh, well, that's easy. I mean, they can get me through my group. I'm on Facebook. I've got a website. I mean, if they Google me, I come up immediately. I've got several pages on Google, so they can find me that way. And I like to just have a chat with them, normally over a video, just to see where they are and, just see how I could possibly help them and see if they're comfortable with me. Because that's
where you work. That's good.
Yes. Need to click. Yeah.
I think Adam's got a question. Was there a question, Adam?
No, not really a question, but a two-part thing here. Now, obviously, I highly recommend you, Karen, when it comes to people with lupus. But if people want to go to the NHS, you can actually go and see a rheumatologist.
Yes, she should be referred to a rheumatologist. Some people don't even get the referral, but they desperately want a referral. So as I said, if you don't get the referral, please don't think that it's you, because the one thing I see on these websites is people think that maybe it's them, maybe they are imagining it. They get to the point where they're like, they doubt themselves.
Yeah.
which is the worst thing about it. You must have done that, Karen. You get to the point where maybe I am imagining it, even though you're not.
I have overdone it so much in the past because I figured I was just lazy. And then I've got even worse. It's fine. You have energy for a few days, but then you bomb. It wasn't until I asked myself the question, would I choose this? And I managed to go, well, no. So if I wouldn't choose this, I'm not this by accident. There must be something wrong.
Yeah. We call it something called medical gaslighting. Do you know the term gaslighting?
Yes.
It comes from that movie, 1944 with Ingrid Bergman.
It's far too prevalent. It's far too prevalent.
Far too prevalent. The people that and to be honest with you, you're vulnerable anyway, and you're ill, and you're struggling. It's not your subject. You don't know anything about blood tests.
Yeah.
Why would you query? And basically, one of the most important things is if you're not getting where you want, go and seek a second opinion. Second opinion is really, really important. And I really encourage people, if they are not getting the answers they want, don't think twice about getting a second opinion.
It's very easy to hold our doctors in thrall, isn't it? To be thinking, well, they must know what they're talking about. But with the customer charter now, also we can insist that a GP refer us, can't we?
Oh, can we? Now, I didn't know that. I just know that I tend to say people, it's different in the States because I have clients in the States.
Right.
And they're a lot more, they can move themselves around in a different way. In the UK, you have to do everything through the system.
Yes, but also now it's become very easy to change GPs. You just simply go, people in the past were very worried about, my GP is going to tell me, well, what's wrong with him? Why are you doing that? And you don't have to do that anymore. You just join a new surgery and they get your, well, not paperwork, but your records from the old surgery. And you don't have to go through the embarrassment of facing your old doctor and saying why. So that's a good thing as well for a second.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say that my GP is absolutely fantastic. He happens to be a pain specialist. He's the head of the practice, and he took me under his wing, and they've been absolutely stunning to me, absolutely wonderful. And the local support I've had for pain management things has been local district nurses, etc., superb. But then, lupus is mysterious to doctors as well, and you need to realize that. So they can be great doctors on everything, but just not lupus.
Yeah. And because GP stands for general practitioner, we can't expect them to be experts at everything, can we?
Yeah.
So remind us again of the name of your book and where can we find it?
It's on Amazon. It's easy. It's called How to Stay Sane in Pain, Clarity, Resilience and Calm with Lupus. So you'd already mentioned resilience, which, it's very, very important, but also calm. Calm is a really important emotion to have in your life. And if you're anxious and you're constantly worrying and you're feeling guilty, etc., you're not going to get that.
No. And how does lupus affect sleep? Because my friend has been saying that her sleep can be fine for a while and then it's off for a while. And that too is difficult, isn't it?
Yes. There's two things that affect sleep. One is the steroids that very often get most people with lupus get prescribed steroids, and they give you a very sort of heightened nervous energy, and they can stop you sleeping. Your brain races. So that's interesting. And the other one is the pain. So in other words, most people can't sleep for full night. They have to get up and move around and unravel themselves because everything's just stiffened up and gone gridlocked whilst you're sleeping. So sleep can be a real issue. I mean,
what the thing that helps, because I'm sure you still deal with that, yes?
Yes, I kind of embrace it. I like the middle of the night. I have these rituals, and I've got things that I can watch, and the dog comes with me, and I just decided to just take a completely different attitude to the fact that I sleep in, sections basically. Painkilling meds help. Oral cannabis under the tongue can help. So quite a lot of people take that before bed to help with sleep. But also just having the routine, having a relaxing, happy routine before bed can help. And then, of course, none of it can help at all, and you can just have a bad night out of nowhere. You just need to. That's one of the things. One of the things about being resilient is not to beat yourself up for a bad day. It's a bad day.
You mentioned something there that I have found life-changing in my chronic illnesses and in my CPTSD, and that is acceptance. And people tend to think of acceptance as resignation, and yet I have found it to be completely the opposite. And for a start, one of my realizations that helped so much was I'm different, I'm not inferior. And when you see people suited and booted and earning lots of money and having colleagues at work, which you miss terribly, it's very difficult to accept that this is your life now. But acceptance is a huge part, isn't it?
Yes, there's something called acceptance and commitment therapy, which actually...
I meant to ask you about that, and I'm so glad you said that, because I didn't know what commitment therapy was.
Yeah, so basically it's along all those lines of making it so that it doesn't become an issue with yourself, and that you can live positively with the ups and downs. Very, very important to destigmatize it in your own mind.
Yes. You get an internalized stigma that is very hard to...
That makes sense to you? That does, Adam. You're shaking your head. You're nodding your head.
I totally agree.
Yeah. You're the first person to call, destigmatize yourself.
Yes, absolutely. No matter what anybody else chooses to say about you, find a way that you feel safe inside about who you are and how you are. Yes,
absolutely.
And also get rid of those so-called friends or relatives who are always putting you down. Cut ties, which is hard, but you'd have to cut ties with people that are toxic.
Cruel to be kind.
Yes. When I was going through my trauma, and I won't go into this very much, but I had to say to my father for a particular reason, Dad, I won't be coming to stay this weekend. And he said, why? I said, well, because, and I gave him the reason, because there were certain triggers. And he said, well, what if I don't do them, darling? And I said, but Dad, you won't be able to help yourself. I said, it's nothing personal. It's about me getting better. I'll stay in touch by phone, and I'm sure I'll be up in the next few weeks. And he then, because he didn't really understand, but he chose to understand. And if we're that honest with people, it's helpful. And if they choose not to understand and carry on being whatever it is that's
stigmatized,
hurtful, then we just have to say, you know what, I love you, but I'm having to distance myself until you choose to understand.
Yeah, you really do know, you really do find out what people are like.
Yes.
I had somebody who was a therapist who had done my training with her, and when I told her I was ill, she said basically, don't call me then. And I never saw her again. Never saw her again. She just couldn't handle illness, and some people can't. Some people cannot handle illness. They don't do illness. They don't want to do it. Some people actually behave as if you are going to infect them in some way, or it's contagious or something like that. And you definitely will learn that those that can look after you and be your friend, and those that can't.
And it's important to say what you've just said is that I have found that not all therapists are good or compassionate about what they do. I've had some terrible therapists that set me back. So again, when you go see a therapist, remember you are auditioning them.
Yes.
They are to serve you.
Yeah.
And they don't have all the answers. They have their faults too. And it's a bit like dating. Don't keep going back to a bad guy. Don't marry a therapist for life if they're no good after the first dinner date. Make sure you try out a few.
I think it's. I mean, I'm an integrated psychotherapist, but I don't tend to do deep psychodynamic therapy, which goes back over your past and whatever. It's very hard work, can be very, very draining, very long term. And I don't do that. I tend to be solution focused. I tend to concentrate on practical stuff that can be actually achieved and done right away. And I like to work like that. That's my way of working, because I think putting somebody through all the traumas of their childhood some
be a
cases,
trigger.
It can be a trigger. You can re-traumatize if you're not careful. So you have to be so careful.
And especially if all they want to know is how to handle the depression that lupus brings. You don't want to bring up the fact that somebody stole their dummy when they were age 2.
No, it may not be relevant. It may be relevant, but it may not be. It's just that definitely I find that's the better way to work.
Yes.
And appreciate what they've been through, basically.
Yeah. Yes.
And also make the solutions easy to do, because that's really crucial.
Yeah.
Because if you're tired and you're sick and you're trying to do cognitive behavioral therapy homework, you need to make it simple, because they won't do it.
No, exactly. Or can't do it. Just simply can't do it.
Can't do it.
Right. We've got, because obviously we'll wrap things up, but we've got a final question here from Sandy. How do you deal with people who come and forget the things they love to do?
What do you think she means by that, Adam?
I have no clue.
Is she basically saying that she's had to give up huge amounts of everything that she loved to do?
I think that's what she's trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah.
To the point where you've even forgotten what joy was, perhaps.
Yeah. Well, literally, you have to start. You literally say to people, because they haven't laughed. I've got people who haven't laughed for 2 years.
Yeah.
Used to love to do. That's what she means.
Used to love to do. Yeah. And you have to basically go back, and you have to see. I used to work with severely disabled young people, and we always used to concentrate on what you can do, not what you can't do. So you get that mindset, and then you start doing little things that you enjoy, and then build it up. But again, it's the little steps. It's amazing what you can achieve. Find new ways, new things to do. I promise you, it's possible.
So you just test out a few things. You might try a bit of painting. You might try a bit of poetry. You might try a bit of bird watching. But whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. And as Kerry says, our mini warriors are home, as you can hear. Well, they've gone upstairs now. But yeah, what we'll do is we'll wrap things up. I think it's been an awesome discussion.
Oh, it's been wonderful to chat to you. Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you. No, it's been great to talk. Well, it's always lovely to talk to Adam, but Karen, it's been so interesting. So interesting.
I'm touched.
So it's been very enlightening in lots of ways. Yes.
Exactly. Right. So all I've got to say is thank you to everyone tuned in. Kerry's come and gone as usual, as she always does. But she's probably going to kill me for that. Yeah, well, just give me the look.
If you were nicer, she'd stay longer.
What? All right. Okay. Apparently good news. My son is getting an award on Friday.
Oh.
I don't know.
That's important. Oh, that's fantastic.
Who knows? But all I've got to say is thank you. Please tune in tonight, 8 p.m, when Dale, straight, sane and sober, is back with guest Kerry Duval, my warrior queen. I've been looking forward to this. Karen, you need to tune into this. You really do.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. 8 p.m. Warrior TV, and yep, that's it. I'll be back tomorrow.
And hopefully we'll see you another time, Karen, for another chat about this.
That would be fantastic. Thank you so much.
Encourage a lot of people with this awful illness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please share this in all in awareness. Right. Cheerio.
Okay. Bye-bye.